DiPalma for being here tonight. Thank you, Lou. In case anyone does not know, my name is Lynne Tungett. I'm the owner and managing editor of Newport This Week for the past 13 years. I've been an island resident for nearly 35 years, and I have a bachelor's degree in education and a lot of postgraduate work also in education from the University of Illinois and University of California system. I was a teacher for several years following graduation, but I've remained a long-time advocate for education and also the island homelessness issue. There have been many discussions, studies, and behind-the-scenes work regarding education on the island for years, and most recently, we had a ballot question. Knowing that many people still had ideas, questions, and visions for education, Newport This Week decided to continue the conversation beyond our print and media format. We had a very successful gathering in December with more than 50 people attending, including families, to view student art holiday projects that were supplied by Maureen Moyer of the Middletown staff and Diane Sheehan, the art director of Newport Schools. And I still brought a few of those projects tonight. Tonight, I'd like to thank Orlando Peace from FabNewport, who is here with some of his students that have been working on a golf project at FabNewport. And I think Steve Heath is going to tell you all a little bit more about that. But Orlando and the young people with him, thank you for coming. And also to Emily Ziller from Rodrigues, who brought the science displays tonight that were part of the Science School Fair. Due in part to the Post-it note comments and survey input in December, we realized the importance of continuing the conversation on the future of education on Aquidneck Island. I hope you'll choose to leave a comment over on the board where we're looking for big ideas for education. And we also have a short survey that we'd love for people to fill out. The first presentation tonight is going to be by Rob Young from NACTC, Newport Area Career and Technical Center. And then that presentation will be followed by 4 15-minute speaking segments, 2 from Middletown and 2 from Newport. The final portion of this evening will be the chance for the audience to make comments or have questions with a 2-minute limit. And we have somebody here tonight who's timing us, Kirby Bear Callie from Newport This Week. And he's telling me 1 minute left. So, Rob, I guess my time is up and I'm going to turn it over to you to tell us about NACTC. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Sure, like you said, I'm Robert Young. I'm the director of the Career and Tech Center. I've been here for 7 years now. Super excited about the opportunity to be the director of the Career and Tech Center. I think it's a great opportunity for students to kind of find their passion and you know, gives them their why, right? Why come to school every day? And for a lot of our students, this is it. Just gives them the reason, you know, to get up every day and make that trek to school. Okay, so when you hear NACTC, it's the Newport Area Career and Tech Center. So kind of a lot of us will just use the word the NACTC or NACTC. So Newport Area Career and Technical Center. So our region is what's up there: Little Compton, Tiverton, Portsmouth, Middletown, and Newport. So that's our region. We do accept students from outside of our region, but we don't provide transportation for those students. So the center is open for everyone, but the way the Department of Education has broken the state down is our region is just that. So we do have students from North Kingstown. We have some from Jamestown, Bristol Warren. We have some students over there. So we have students from outside of our region, but some of them provide their own transportation. Some of their parents work on base, for example, so they'll drop them off in the morning and then they'll pick them up in the afternoon. So we do have many students there. Right now we're at 450 students, and that total at Rodgers is about 670 right now. So more than 2/3 of the students at the high school are involved in one of these programs. Right, we have 9 programs right now. We have some full and we do have some part-time options. So we work well with Portsmouth and Middletown, and we're close enough where students can come to us for their career and technical center education, and then they head back to their home school. They'll take their core classes. So they'll spend the morning, for example, at the NACTC, and then afternoon at Middletown or Portsmouth High School. One of the things I'm most proud of is that the graduation rate. So 96% of our students graduate from high school on time. And so many of us grew up in the era where, you're struggling in school, so just throw them in VOTech, right? Throw them in the voc ed, and you don't have to worry about graduating, just get some skills and go off and get a job. But that's not how it works anymore, especially with us. So 9 out of every 10 of our students do get their high school diploma. And that says a lot about the programs. It really does say a lot about what the teachers are doing, and it says a lot about the teachers. So if you do your Google search on what makes a student successful in high school, one of the top 3 things that are going to pop up are if they're attached, to the school, if they play a sport, if they're in a club. But for us, it's if they're, they're in that program with their teachers. So what's unique about the CTE programs is they're with their teachers for 4 years. So they'll see that student come in as a 9th grader, and they'll watch them grow up to a young adult as a senior, and they'll know more, about the students a lot of times than the parents do. And so that's that mentor, that's that adult. Can't be at 2 minutes already. So that's I got the sign that yeah, 2 minutes already. I better hurry up. But having that adult connection with the students is one of the reasons why that graduation rate is so high. NEASC accredited. So every high school in Rhode Island is NEASC accredited. So it's New England Association Schools and Colleges. So they all have that. But we as a center, we have our own accreditation. So what it is, you have a group of CTE instructors from all out over New England. They come down, they spend about 4 days with us, checking on all of our programs. They check on, everything from support services, how we teach, if we're supported through the school, the city, guidance counselors, et cetera. But the 3 things that they focus on is curriculum, instruction, and assessment. So those 3 things is what they really focus on. So what we teach, how we teach it, and how do we know our students are learning what we're teaching them. So those 3 things are what they focus on. And then at the end, they give us a thick, 200-page report on sustains and improves in our program. But the fact that we have our own accreditation aside from Rogers High School having theirs is something that our teachers are really proud of, and we as administrators in the building are also proud of that as well. So we talk about 21st century education. I think you'll see this pretty much everywhere throughout the state now. They're looking for hands-on project-based learning, real life experiences, and we'll get into a little more detail with that. Student businesses, community projects. Our programs will prepare our students for both college and career. And so one of the things that, we really worked on from the beginning of when I got in the program is making sure students have the opportunity to do both. So you can be in my carpentry program, for example, and you could take AP classes. You could take honors classes. You could take the world languages. And so one of the things the boss said is make sure students don't have to make that choice anymore. So we work together with the high school to say, all right, our seniors are going to be in carpentry this period. So make sure we don't have AP that period so that they would be able to take both. And so that's one of the things that we really come a long way on is allowing our students to take both the career courses and the AP, the honors, the world histories, and the world languages, et cetera. The last bullet is something that's we really kind of got moving forward. Oops, I'm off camera, sorry. Really got moving forward is the college credits. Pre-COVID, we were really gaining a lot of momentum on that piece, working with CCRI in Newport. And then when COVID hit, we did have to kind of pause. And we're building that back up. But at one point, I think we had 25 students that would show up at the high school, jump on a shuttle bus, head over to CCRI. They'd spend the morning there, and then they come back and finish out the day at the high school. So we're really proud of the relationship we have with CCRI in Newport. I could call them up and say, hey, I want to add a Spanish class, for example. They would, as long as I have enough students, they would build it. and we would fill that class. So great working relationship with the community college. So one of the things that it's all about is the internships. So you've got a couple photos up here of students who have the opportunity to get that work-based learning experience while enrolled in the high school. So up in the top left, he's worked at Langley Toyota, graduated in June and started working there in July. And once we build that relationship with them, that's starting to grow some more. They come back to us and say, hey, I need another one. I need another one. Can you give me more? So, and on the bottom side is he's in the construction business. Again, he did an internship there. They hired him right away. And one of the things I tell these guys is, you're going to be 18, 19 years old, and you're going to be making more money than some of your teachers were. So, they're excited about that, but it's, a lot of times, end of junior year, they start to think about that kind of stuff. And this gives them the spark to keep things going. And what's great is they come back too. They come back and talk to the students. So they talk to our freshmen. So make sure, like, I know you don't like taking that PE class or taking that art class, but you have to take it to graduate. Don't do what I did and have to take 2 phys eds because it impacted my internship or something like that. So they come back and mentor our students. So and they're always welcome to come back and work with our students and do some things with our teachers. Just another, he's in our internship right now. He's in our carpentry program, kind of got a spark to be an electrician. So we set him up to work with an electrician, and now he's working there with them. And he'll get hired right out of high school and start his career. All right, so we talk about community projects and how you give back. This is something that the first year carpentry students they work together with our ad design students and our art students. And so it's called Project Playhouse. So the students will get together and they'll build a playhouse. They'll get given a theme, and they'll know that this playhouse is going to go to a medically qualified child. So they'll build the playhouse. Ours is the one on the far left. It's a little hard to see, but it's Transformers. So that was the child was interested in Transformers, so we built a Transformers house. The other 2 are from other centers throughout the state. Then they head up to Bryant University, and they're kind of in a room like this. The child and the family watch a little presentation, and they walk out the door, and our students are out there as well. And the child walks up to the playhouse, and he's awarded the playhouse after the day. So it's a surprise for the child. And so but it's great for the students to see that they may be business owners someday, but sometimes it's good to give back. So from here, we'll just quickly go through some of our programs and talk about some of the highlights in our programs. So advertising, design, new media, it's one of the fastest growing programs at the high school. So they have a production lab. They have a lot of Mac computers. They work on things like screen printing, embroidery. They do a lot of video things. So they do some small businesses as well. They give back to the community. They just gave holiday cards to the VA home. They do to some of the nursing homes as well. So all the stuff that they design, but they learn a lot about running a business. So for example, if they're embroidering a t-shirt or a shirt or something, and they don't do it right, the teacher explains to them, if this is your business, now you eat that, right? So now you're not going to be able to sell that shirt because you didn't, measure it properly or measure it first. But if you go in that room sometime, you'll see that it's busy. It's happening all the time. The students are always working on something. And then during COVID, one of the things that they added in the program was during some of the basketball games or volleyball games, because people couldn't go and see those games, our students videoed those games, posted it on YouTube, and so people from home could do that. And they also they still do our graduation every year as well. So a lot of good things. One thing that I've learned, the people in front of the camera, you think that they're kind of doing all the work, but the students behind the camera, they're the ones that are running the show. So there's a couple of times where I had to speak, and you have 11th graders and 10th graders grabbing me and making sure I'm there and doing what I'm supposed to do. So, but they get it right. They really do an awesome job. Just one more on that. I don't know if this goes backwards, but so last year at graduation, the top 3 students on the stage were all in our ad design program. So the salutatorian, valedictorian, and the senior class president were all in our ad design program. Right, automotive is growing quickly. This year's 9th grade group sold out or filled up. So every seat was full in our automotive 1 program. And our seniors that are graduating are getting placed in jobs before they actually graduate. So as you saw, the Langway Toyota, he's there now. He's got another friend that's also at Langway, got one at Flood Auto Group, and we have another intern at Flood Auto as well. And I think you can't be in Rhode Island if you don't see a Flood Auto commercial multiple times every morning. So we do have students that are there. One of them is at Flood Auto. He also picked up a part-time job at CCRI. They do the motorcycle training over there, and he fixes those motorcycles. So he's working constantly. But our automotive program, like I said, and one of the things that in automotive is there's a lot more girls that are signing up for that program too. So it used to be all guys, you go in there, but now you'll go in there and you'll see the girls actually running the show. So super proud of the fact that we have more in there. All right, culinary arts. This is the largest program that we have. We are like full, maxed out. I tell everyone, if you're going to apply to this program, make sure you apply on time or early, because you won't get in. So now, at one point, there were times where the kitchen was closed, but now it's full from 7:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. with students in there doing things. So we have 2 instructors now. The Colonial Dining Room is back open, which is a student-run restaurant and business, so they're doing that. We're on track to get a NACTC food truck next fall, so students will have the opportunity to do some entrepreneurship and business in that piece. And lots of competitions are starting to kick back in. So right now they're preparing for a Pro Start competition, where they actually, kind of like the ones you see on TV, where they're given a box of food and they're just told to go, and the evaluators will circle them the whole time as they go. So you're evaluated on how you cook the food, but also whoever that leader is has to make sure it's done at the right time. I've watched, it's pretty intense, especially for a group of high school students. But a culinary arts program really is taking off. All right, construction technology. Again, the students in this program are a lot of the students in here, they're interested in the construction piece, but one of the things that we find is they're also into the engineering piece. So they like to learn about, so they'll be in construction technology, but then they may go on to college and study engineering, at URI or something like that. So, but they do a lot. You'll see them. I think they're they get 1 or 2 sheds every year where they'll build a shed on site, and then they'll take it to someone's house and assemble it there. They do things like decks. So depending on what the need is at that time, they do 2 lifeguard chairs every year here in Newport. So they're busy. They're very busy. So they are incorporating some technology. So they have some CAD and some design things in their program as well. They get their OSHA and the HBI is their certification that they all get. So when they leave, they have a certification that they can show their employer that they've mastered certain skills in construction technology. All right, so our AOIT program, they study software, hardware, a lot of technology, information technology, cybersecurity. We're all kind of rolling the P-Tech and the AOIT piece in together. So our IT program, they take their classes on site. So at Rogers High School, taught by one of our instructors. Cybersecurity students were partnered with CCRI. And so some of our students will go to CCRI, take their classes and work towards their associate degree in cybersecurity. We're averaging about 1 a year. So every year, one of our students will graduate from Rogers High School and the Community College of Rhode Island with their associate degree at the same time. So super proud of that. As someone who has one child in college, one that's going to start next year, the fact that this is at no cost to the parent is, I'm envious of anyone who gets those credits paid for. Our ROTC program. So as far as number of students, this is our second highest number of students that are in the ROTC program. So they focus on a lot of teamwork, leadership. They do take some first aid, some CPR. A a lot of times, if you need something at the high school, they're like, oh, what can the ROTC kids help? So any kind of ambassador events, but they do a great job. And some of the high flyers in here do go off into some, some bigger things. Cosmetology. So we're still there. We still have our Cosmo program. It's still working well. Student run salon. I think it's opened on Wednesdays now. We have a new teacher this year. This year we actually had Max out in our Cosmo 1 of our entry level programs. But that's still there, and it's actually going well. One of our newer programs is hospitality and tourism. So we were approached by the Rhode Island Hospitality Association with a number of events and hotels and things here in Newport to start this program up here. So this is we're in year 2 of this program, but it's slowly kind of catching ground and working on our hospitality piece. In visual arts, so this is a chance for students who have a passion for arts to really focus on 4 years of art in the high school, leading to some AP art history classes, some internships, and some opportunities to work with local artists. So just some of our partners, some of the businesses that work with us, and it's just a list of where some of our students are now. So some of the things that we're most proud of is one is that graduation rate. So we know that 9 out of 10 of our students are graduating on time. It's the highest subgroup of all. So when we say subgroup, so they break down the graduation rate by race, gender, socioeconomic, all of that. Our CTE is the highest subgroup for graduation rate with that piece. So there's Carrie and I's point of contact. So if you have any questions or anything, you can call or email us. We have an event on Wednesday night at 5:30 at our school, where we're going to open up our doors. We're going to invite all the students from all of our region to come and talk and take a look at our programs. They'll talk to the teachers, and from there, they'll do their application process, and we'll start that ball rolling for them for next year. I am 1 minute. Yep.
Now primarily Rodrigues High School.
So we're on campus. The question was, are we housed inside of Rodrigues High School? So the NACTC building is on the same campus of Rodrigues High School, but we're our own building. So our ROTC and our design program is inside of Rodrigues High School. The other programs are in the NACTC building. So in the design of the new building, these programs are built inside of that design of the new building. Correct. So they'll be inside. The plan right now is they'll be inside of the new Rodrigues. So on the first floor, you'll have carpentry, Cosmo, culinary, and like on the second floor is ad design. The third floor is our AOIT program. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Rob. We really appreciate that overview of NACTC and your programs. We're going to get the lights turned back on here for our next speaking group. So I mentioned to you that we would have 2 groups from Middletown and 2 groups from Newport. Well, the 2 groups are actually going to, one be a group of what I'm calling grassroots private folks who are individuals that just have some ideas about the vision or future of education. And then our other group will be a combination of council and school committee people. So I'm first going to have our Middletown grassroots folks come on up. That would be Ron Heroux. Come on up, Ron. Tom Kowalczyk and Barbara VonVillas40. Ron, I'm going to give the microphone to you first.
Thank you. I do have a background in education as well. Educational technology from Rick, master's from URI, and a doctorate from Simmons in administration. I've taught at schools, mainly the university level. I'm going to go from basic to what I'd like to see happening. What is the purpose of establishing a municipal education system? I think most of you would generally agree that it is to offer the best educational program and curriculum to enable our students to succeed and grow as adults in a very changing and challenging environment, and to do so in a safe, healthy, and creative environment. Both Newport and Middletown are currently on a path to building 2 separate high schools to resolve building problems. Will this alone enhance the educational opportunities of the students in each of these communities? Likely not. If the vote on school regionalization had passed in both communities, I had assumed the Transitional Regional Advisory Committee would have established a blueprint to achieve a better education system by outlining savings and efficiencies in the operation of the new regional school, enhanced educational opportunities, and building construction savings. The total vote from both Newport and Middletown was enough to establish a regional school system. However, the vote count in Newport alone was approximately 400 votes short of approving school regionalization. Why? Primarily because wording in the referendum to regionalize the school did not indicate how the schools would unify except administratively and financially. Plus, there was a sense of distrust by some Newport voters that Middletown officials just wanted money to build their own schools because 3 years ago, Middletown Town Council refused to discuss or even examine the possibility of a unified or regional system with Newport. I say to Newport voters that decision of Middletown Town Council at the time was very upsetting to most Middletown voters as well. This led to the formation by Middletown residents of the Citizens Exploring School Unification organization, of which I was a board member. This group obtained over 1,100 signatures from Middletown voters to have Middletown and Newport study the pros and cons of school regionalization. That's 3 years ago. Again, the Middletown Town Council refused. In the past few months, the Town Council chair, under new leadership, has apologized, and a majority of Town Council members and Middletown School Committee members favor school regionalization with Newport. I believe we have proven the financial incentives for a regional school system. What remains is to establish the educational benefits of regionalization by examining and outlining how and why this should be accomplished. This work would be undertaken by a planning regional committee made up of both towns with representatives of teachers, parents, and students. It's my vision. The planning committee would be assisted by RIDE, just like they assisted the recent examination of the financial benefits. I foresee the report from such a regional planning committee as being the basis upon which school regionalization is again on the ballot in a future election. Even though both communities are seemingly marching in different directions, there is no reason why we cannot merge our educational goals for the sake of the students of Newport and Middletown. I say to you, our community leaders in the government and school committees and the state, and we have one here today, there is a groundswell in both Newport and Middletown to improve the educational system in our community. It is up to you, the leaders, now, with the support of RIDE, to lead us in this direction. Thank you.
My turn? Okay. I'm actually going to start with something from 2014. This was put together by the Middletown Newport Exploratory Committee at that time. Neither Middletown nor Newport has the resources to support the existing educational structures over the long term. Programs will continue to be reduced or restructured while expenses rise every year. The educational opportunities available to today's students, fewer than those that were available to their parents, are unsustainable. School districts in Newport County are faced with major issues related to sustainability that are irresolvable within the current structure. Increasingly inadequate funding that affects the quality of the academic programs, diminishing enrollments that undermine the ability to serve the needs of all students, a declining competitive workforce that promotes economic growth, and a declining and aging population. Those were the points that were made by the exploratory committee in 2014. I wanted to bring that to you as an introduction to what I had to say, because I want to talk about what's happening now. There's no benefit in clinging to what used to be. The Middletown Newport Aquidneck Island Exploratory Committee recognized that as long ago as 2014. The prospects for improvement are only in going forward. It's important to remember that the main objection before the November election was the lack of an educational plan. Bringing middle grade students together will have potential benefits, but only if those in charge take steps to improve the quality of the education to be provided in the new facility. However, high schools need to pay even more attention to curriculum, especially since students will be going in different directions if and when they graduate. Whether we maintain the existing structure or do something different, assessment data clearly shows that educational improvement in both our high schools is absolutely necessary. We all know that diversity is an issue in assessment. We can't change that. But how much more can we do going forward to improve achievement for all the students if we combine our resources? Just housing our high school students in a single building will not in any way improve the quality of their education. All students are not the same, and we can't treat them as if they are. I have been working for the last 2 weeks with representatives of both our communities to try to develop a proposal that everyone can live with. The new plan calls for increased attention to heavy-duty basics in grades 9 and 10 at both high schools, followed by additional focused programs for grades 11 and 12 at each school, without duplication, that are directed at the future goals of individual student groups. And I do want to commend the gentleman who came before us, on the wonderful description that he's given of the Career and Tech program. I have been a great advocate of that program consistently. Choosing from multiple programs at Rogers High School or at Middletown High School would be no different than Middletown and Portsmouth students choosing to go to the Career and Technical School at Rogers High School in Newport, which is what they do now. However, there would be differently focused program sequences in each school. So every student would have access to the kind of courses and future goals specific to his or her individual needs. It would also facilitate the combining of some accelerated classes that would allow some teachers to actually teach content at a more challenging level, while others focused on increased attention to basic skills for those who would benefit from that. The result would be higher achievement for all the students. There would have to be half-year courses at grades 9 or 10 to expose the students to the variety of their future options. 10th grade students would make course selections for grade 11 based on their individual future career interests. Change is hard, but keeping everything the same, even in new buildings, is not the way to get better results. Nothing happens quickly. For example, regionalization has been on the table since 2011, and I know because I've been there. Change is based on gradual acceptance. The number of students over the years going to opposite schools would increase as it became a natural selection related to the multiple and varied new opportunities that meet their individual interests. I have been told by 3 independent and reliable sources that all the other groups, municipal and school related, are looking for a pathway forward that will benefit everyone, both educationally and financially. But everything depends on the actions of the Newport School Committee. So whether or not we move forward for kids is in their hands. There is nothing more to say.
Good evening. I've got a couple of anecdotes that I'd like to take you through. And when I'm telling these stories, I'd like you to think about your son, your daughter, niece, nephew, some kid you're worried about the future. First one is in quantum computing, okay? So let's do an external scan about education in this particular domain. So IBM right now runs a course for high school students around the country. The quantum computer is in Yorktown Heights, New York. And the students program this computer over the web, like the old days when we used to go submit our cards and get the program back the next day. It didn't work again. Remember those days? So IBM is running this course nationwide. The graduate students in universities in quantum computing around the country are the proctors in this course. So that's just a data point. That's happening, okay? Along those same lines, Microsoft has a new language for quantum computing. And they are also offering a free course online to learn that language. Now, so what's that mean? Well, the predictions are that quantum computing is going to bring to society capabilities that are going to dwarf the existing computer advancements. And these companies with enlightened self-interest are training their workforce. Now, I'm about expanded learning opportunities. So I'd like to see in this idea of education on Quinnick Island is that our children have an opportunity to learn about the fact that those courses are being offered and then either decide to take it or not. So I'd like to see that happen, and I'm working on that. Second one is I'm a member of the Middletown Rotary, and Middletown, the organization, has these interact clubs for 12 to 18-year-olds. And the whole idea is to put service above self and projects, community projects, local and worldwide, into this club set. Okay. Now, reason I feel that's so important to have one in it's going to be at the Newport County YMCA, so it's available to the whole county. Is I'm an education counselor for MIT, and what that means is high school seniors that want to go to MIT come to get grilled by me. Okay, and that's not unlike going to another technical school in the country. There are a lot of good ones, or getting a job. There are a lot of good jobs. So when your son or daughter is sitting before me there, and I asked him, why would MIT let you in? Oh, hey, I took advanced calculus. Well, so did the other 10,000 applicants. Well, I'm in the National Honor Society. Well, so are the other 10,000 applicants. The discriminating factor is if the kid sitting across the table from me has had some project experience that they're excited about, because that's what differentiates them. In my interview, and I firmly believe that that's what differentiates them in any other interview for a school, any other interview for a job. So if we're planning to have an Interact Club in Newport County running for the 2023 year. So questions?
Thank you, Ron and Barbara and Tom. Appreciate your thoughts and ideas about working with our youth, our high school youth in particular, going forward. At this point, I would like the second grassroots group comprised of Hank Kniskern and Steve Heath to come up, and it looks like Steve is queuing up the computer there to get ready. Or Hank, I don't know which of the two of you wanted to go first. I'll let you decide. Okay. Hank's looking at that quantum computer to be very seriously there, huh? You ready, Steve?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Always amazed how nervous I get doing these things. And hey, thanks to the group from Middletown. You laid some good groundwork there. And Carrie and Colleen, thanks for all your good work at Newport Public Schools and NACTC. So I think, so those of you who don't know me, my name's Steve Heath. I've been an educator in Boston and Chicago and Rhode Island now for 30 plus years. I'm the executive director of FabNewport, which is rebranded to FabX, and we serve about 5,000 students a year, primarily middle and high school students here in Newport County and Providence, primarily urban underserved youth. And so the question I think that I've been thinking about as all this discussion is going on is, you know, where's the discussion about what great learning looks like? I've read a lot of articles about buildings and money and this and that and the other thing. But so I asked the question, what if Newport County had the most amazing learning opportunities in all of America, of all the world? Like, we all live here because this is a beautiful place. We love it here. It's amazing. Even in the winter, you can find interesting things to do. Go down and see a snowy owl at Statuesque Point. How cool is that, right? So why not do that? And then actually, I was talking to somebody the other day, and there's been a loss of students due to COVID. We're not even sure where all of they've gone. We know that a lot of adults who live here in Newport and have young people pay to send their kids to other schools. So if we had the most amazing learning system possible, I bet you we could actually increase enrollment. So that's the why not piece. So what if and why not? So, and what we think about at our organization is that we feel the conversation should start with what should a portrait of a graduate look like? And I heard our friends from Middletown talking about that. So, and what do we want a graduate to look like? What capabilities should they have? What competencies? And why doesn't every one of these young girls have the opportunity to discuss their plans, to meet the people that require or to scaffold the life and just bring that? So that's our goal in our organization, is to ensure every young person has a positive future vision and they have the resources, opportunities, and relationships to bring that to life. And when we think about what it takes to do that, we think about our kids doing it for the right reason. That's the integrated identity. We all know people who sometimes do things for the wrong reason, but are they doing it for the right reason? Is it something they believe in? And are they growing a set of competencies that will allow them to grow into their positive future vision? And do they have the agency or the confidence to actually execute on that? And so, and I heard the folks from Middletown saying that everybody is different. Everybody learns differently. So it looks different. You know, athletes have coaches, movie stars have coaches. You know, everyone who has money has a coach, right? But let's get coaches to our young people. Let's help them develop the relationships necessary in order to do that. And so when we think about what it takes, we feel like relationships are at the core of success. Any one of us who is living well usually has a set of people who we count on and we work with kids in the schools, and we know sometimes they struggle to build the relationships that they need. All children are gifted. We know all kids want to learn. They don't always want to learn what we want them to learn, but we know they want to learn. They're motivated. And we also know learning occurs everywhere. Our kids are going home after school. They're on YouTube. They're on TikTok. It's amazing the things that they're picking up. And hey, Tom, some of them might even be studying quantum physics for all we know, or quantum computing. And then, there's the One Newport thing. We know it takes a village. No one can do it alone. So I'm going to show you guys a 4-minute video that puts a whole new twist on this thing. I think you might enjoy it. Some of you might be scratching your head, but we'll give it a shot here. I got it right here.
Today's education system assumes meaningful learning happens only at a place called school. Children learn best with their same-aged peers. Every child should learn the same content at the same pace. Standardized exams are the best way to know if a child is smart, and compliance is valued over self-expression. That system often leaves children bored, disengaged, depressed, anxious, and focused on checking off boxes that aren't meaningful to them. Leaves parents frustrated, unsure how to support their kids, and focused on a narrow definition of success, and causes teachers to feel burnt out, exhausted, unsupported, and under-resourced. It does not have to be this way. We can imagine and create a transformed future for education, a future that fosters a lifelong love of learning, promotes curiosity, teamwork, exploration, and discovery, and partners with families to meet the needs, spark the interests, and honor the aspirations of the individual child, all while building healthy relationships and thriving communities. This new future can come to life in community-based ecosystems of learning. In this vision, our communities are the playground for learning. Children learn with various adults and peers of all ages. Every child embarks on a learning journey that is unique to their interests and passions. A child can demonstrate what they know and what they can do in a variety of ways. And structures and supports exist to ensure every family receives what they need, no matter their background or circumstances. In this future, we acknowledge that learning lives everywhere, at recreation centers, parks, public libraries, museums, office buildings, colleges, community gardens, theaters, churches, homes, and schools that have been transformed into maker spaces, media centers, STEM labs, and more. Imagine every child has a vibrant network of support that begins at a home base, a safe space for young people to build stable, years-long relationships with a group of peers and adult learning advisors. At these home bases, young people partner with their advisors to set learning goals, co-create learning pathways, and find support for their health and well-being. From this home base, the child is connected to learning hubs all around the community and virtually. Learning hubs serve as spaces of deep inquiry where young people pursue and expand their unique interests, develop and demonstrate competencies, are exposed to new thinking and ideas, and get support where they are struggling. Learning is further enhanced at field sites where young people meet and work with community mentors on real-world problems through internships, jobs, field projects, and service learning. Children and young people move through this ecosystem according to their unique learning journey and in ways appropriate to their stage of development and maturity. In this way, young people are finding community and belonging, building their social capital, discovering what lights them up, contributing their gifts to real community challenges, and developing their competencies in mathematics, language, history, and science. This vision of ecosystems may be radically different than what exists today, but it is not radical. It is informed by the wisdom, culture, and lived experience of communities, and builds on the incredible work that learner-centered practitioners, youth development leaders, and communities have advanced for decades. Yes, building this type of education ecosystem will require shifting how we view the roles of adults, when, where, and how we assess and credential learning, how resources are allocated, and what governance and shared accountability structures look like. But if we believe children deserve to be happy, prepared, and supported to pursue their interests and ambitions, now is the time to bring to life ecosystems of learning that can achieve those desired results. To explore more about community-based ecosystems of learning, visit education.
Okay, Hank, one more minute and I'll turn it over to you. Oops. There we go. So thanks for watching that. Just to close, this is what we are working on. We work with about 35 partners in over the course of a school year here in Newport County. And we are working with now about 10 environmental, recreational, and scientific-based organizations to develop a set of pathways, starting in elementary school, working through middle school and high school, so young people can discover their journey into what people are talking about, the blue economy. And we know our kids love the blue economy. They like playing on the beach, they like surfing, they like sailing. So it's up to us to continue their engagement with the things they love so they can then find their ways into the opportunities that will allow them to prosper and to stay here in beautiful Rhode Island and earn a nice living and carry on the traditions that we love. So here you go, Hank.
Thank you, Steve. Good evening. My name's Hank Kniskern, and I'm coming at this from a little different perspective. And I've been working with organizations in transition and responding to change from pretty much my whole life, starting in Bell Labs and so forth, and then developing, the psychology of decision making during these processes. And since then, one of my most fundamental, I think, experience I'd like to bring to bear is working with Colleen and her team, the school committee, developing the strategy for Rogers. I don't know how many years it's been now, 6, 7, but it was dramatically successful. And it was successful because everybody was in a twit. We didn't have any computers. We didn't have, the teachers were frustrated, the parents were frustrated, the children were frustrated, the administrators were frustrated. But we said, look, if you're willing to put in the time and the effort to talk this through in kind of a neutral environment and look around and see what's happening in other places around us, because we're not the only people with this problem, it might be of real value to us. And we did. And so I think the theme of this is, how do we as a community create an environment to move ahead with education in the context of regionalization. Regionalization can bring a lot to the table. I am a proponent of regionalization. I voted against it. I'm sorry, Barb. And I'll tell you why, because if you look at organizations undergoing these changes, this was looking a little bit like a train wreck. There's nothing as sad as watching a train wreck in motion. And one of the things, if we look at, just organizations, when you do more mergers and acquisitions in the for-profit market, businesses, and also nonprofit, 70% of those mergers and acquisitions fail. A lot of them are driven by an idea that we'd be much more powerful if we were bigger. Oftentimes, unfortunately, in business, it's the executive pay will go up because there'll be more revenue coming in if you merge two companies together. The ones that work are the ones that spend a great deal of time talking about the realities of change and really what has to change, what processes actually have to change. And if you're going, for instance, if you really want to grow in a market you're not in and you want to create a company in that market, what's it going to take? And if you're just talking about revenues, this is why I got so scared with the vote here. If you only hear about revenues, revenue potential, that's usually a sign of death, because it doesn't work. It never does work. Because on the flip side of making this acquisition and what revenues may come in, there is a huge cost side of it. The time it takes your best people to start merging curriculum, buildings, maintenance, coordination, processes, change is huge. And And so in order to get the true cost, you have to all in the revenue, you have to say, what is it that we're going to accomplish that we're not accomplishing now? What do we want the outcomes to be? And I'm not talking just about I'm not talking just about test scores. There are so many other variables to success, and you heard about all these today. In this community, you have Steve talking about the value of experiential learning. It's real. We're going in that direction. That is the future. And Mike and the gang always talking about STEM, STEAM, and that has to be part of it. It has to be part of it. And then the stuff that Tom was talking about with the computing and all the resources out there. If we're just talking about, do we merge high schools, or if not, if we're like we were talking about earlier, it won't work. The thing that makes these things work is what things have the most value to the community in education. And I mean, two that always popped out in my head from working on the strategy was the desperate need for having preschool for all students. And in New York, I think they've done this now. It's policy. They're all 3 or 4-year-olds have preschool. And that was the one thing that changes everything beyond that. The second thing was the middle school seemed to be the area that if you make some big changes in the middle school, because these critters are neither fish nor fowl, and the amount of time and you can put into that, the better it is. So how could we, through regionalization, because we're both struggling with middle schools now, how going through regionalization could we possibly be able to do something that is a stellar example of having it work in the middle school, which is tough. But one of the things that is really, really one of the differentiating factors is adult to kid time. And this has come up in the discussion. The more time that adults can spend with kids in that age group is really one of the launching skills that make a difference, and for the planning in high school, where then the real skill acquisition takes place. To go back to the strategy that Colleen and her folks did, we had, again, no computers, and we knew that was a problem. We had a lot of the vocational program was pretty much decimated in the regime before Colleen, and that had to be rebuilt. Teachers were frustrated because of of all the changes that had to occur during this time. But look at Robert's program up there. I think the programs have increased by 30%. And if you want to see how this really does work, and I can talk about Newport, and I know there's programs like that in Middletown. But if you just watch like the graphic arts program, you go in there and it's like walking into a different energy field. So what do? Well, first off, the teacher pushes the kids hard, but they have the right equipment and it's highly interactive. The adult connection is strong. They go out and he brings in people who are in this business, who hire these kids, and they talk about what it's like, the frustrations the businesses have. And these things, the kid maybe not totally understand it, but it's like in the old days, it's like formatting the disk. So the kids have this in mind at an early age, and they can start adapting to it. And then they say, this is why you need to take math. This is why you need to be able to write a complete sentence. This is the reason you need to work with others carefully. So I think that I'm starting to blab on now here, but I was hoping, and thanks to Lynne for kind of keeping this thing moving, was that we could somehow, maybe as a result of this, come out with saying, what do we want? What can we do to set an environment to have the right kinds of conversations to talk through all these issues? Yes, there's revenues and there's cost savings, and those are real. Also, in talking to people who know a lot more about this than I do, I realize I don't know a lot of what went on in the earlier discussions leading up to the that were already taking place by both communities. So there, I think there's a lot of value that was in there that a lot of people don't know about. So I think if we just could bring that more to the surface, but you have to do it around what problems do we really want to address. Lastly, I have to do things. One is somewhere in this environment where it's talked about, the people who own this thing when it's all done have to have a little more say than everybody else. That'd be the teachers, the administrators, the parents, and what they're trying to accomplish. And those voices have to have a little bit more amplification, I think. The second is, I think we're talking about revenue. Where do we get revenue from? Our revenue model is really quite screwy. I mean, it's taxes and ride. That's it. So I think I think there's a lot more to this than we have ever talked about. Like, for instance, just say you had a school that had a walking track outside for seniors, or a swimming pool that could be used by seniors, or had a ton of adult ed classes where people went to. I don't think you would have much of a problem raising all kinds of funds for all kinds of projects. And in terms of cooperation and support, I think we've become detached is the community of the parent community, and then there's everybody else. So I think if we could bring that back together somehow and put the schools always have been a valuable resources to the community. And I think if we could bring that back and make that happen, it might make a difference. And I know it would make a difference in revenue. I am sure of it. Lastly is ride. I think there always are constraints. There has to be policies, there have to be rules, and these have been developed over time. But oftentimes they become antiquated, but they're just there because they're there. And so I think bringing in ride in this and asking them to really be a real key player in this and suspend some of their guidelines, some of their requirements to be able to help us really exceptionally execute some of the educational goals you folks have talked about. So I think if we take those things into consideration, we could, that's what I was hoping for to come out after this meeting, is this environment where this could take place. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hank. Well, everybody has really shared their passions and visions, and I appreciate everyone that is here tonight. What we're really here about, though, is about the students and their education and their path going forward. So it's really my pleasure tonight to actually introduce a Middletown High School senior, Chloe Christie, who just left one meeting. I love it. High school kids, we had to wait and work around her schedule for her to be able to be here. And she has a few things that she would like to share for the group. And then I imagine she's probably going to head back and hit the books. However, very happy for Chloe to say that she has already at least been accepted into Brown. So this is a young lady with a great future. So Chloe, you want to come up and share with the folks here about some of your thoughts on education?
Thank you for that great introduction. I hope I can live up to it. I'm just here to talk about some of the things that I think are really important for us to focus on education-wise for the students, just on Aquinic Island in general, based on my experience at MHS. I think based on our small town community, I think community is very important to feel in a school. And I think I'm lucky enough to say that when I walk through the Middletown High School halls, I definitely feel like we're all connected based on either my relationships with the administration and the faculty or students in general. So I think that, of course, academics should be the main focus, but we should also be focused on building a school full of people that can connect with each other in an open environment for learning, discussion, and collaboration. And while my current school does not have all of the classes that I think could be offered if we were to regionalize, or perhaps just to change the structure of the school, or maybe change our funding plan, I think what we do offer right now is really important, and we have a broad academic schedule that's offered. We have a lot of APs, a lot of honors, but more importantly, I think we offer a lot of arts opportunities. And I know that most of that is based on what the parents and the students fight for. I know that due to budget cuts this year, we are going to cut our ensemble program, our select choir program, some of our art classes. And it was really the students and the parents that came together and fought to keep that in the schools, because at the end of the day, of course, we go to school to learn, but we also go to school to explore our passions and try to find out who we're going to be for the rest of our lives. So I think that going forward, our island in general needs to balance both academics and areas of interest for students that they find their passions in and that they think that they could make a career out of, or at least explore more going forward. And I think that that's very important, as well as academics, of course, because we do offer some great classes. And we did just adopt a new English curriculum based on what the state recommended. It's Study Sync. Controversial opinions there, because it's a program from the state that we're trying to make our own, basically, and teach our students this version of something that wasn't really catered towards our own school. So we're trying to find our own niche there and make it something for all students to really get involved in, and obviously learn the basics of the curriculum while also trying to make it their own. So I think moving forward, if we were to regionalize programs like that, where we have a set baseline of what we need to be learning, but also the school has the ability to make it their own and cater it towards the needs of students based on what we've seen either from standardized test scores or just from what students have expressed in general. I definitely think that student opinion should be factored into whatever decisions we make. And of course, their interests, like I said, whether it's art, music, maybe a manufacturing class, the pathways such as STEM, robotics, stuff like that. We also have a biomedical pathway that I think is worth exploring further. And I know that I'm also on the Student Advisory Council Board for RIDE. So we were talking about trying to introduce more career tech pathways into smaller towns like us, because while we might not have all the resources of a school like Barrington, we can definitely implement things for our students. And that might come if we regionalize, meaning we would have a bigger population with more teachers, more funding, and obviously that's just very service level. But if we were to combine schools, or at least districts in that sort of way, we might be able to offer more of these programs for students and offer them more time in their schedule to explore things that they're passionate about. I think that's really it for me right now. I don't know if there's any other topics I should cover. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Chloe. You can see what a mature young lady that is. It's gonna go far, I'm sure. Thank you so much, Chloe, for coming forward and sharing your ideas with the other folks here tonight. So I think it seems only appropriate if we move on now to Middletown School Committee, and Paul is here to join Theresa and maybe giving us anybody who's gathered here tonight, any updates, where you are, things that Middletown is working on. We know there's a lot of things in the works. A lot is out of our hands with the state and RIDE, like Hake had mentioned, but perhaps there's some things that Theresa and Paul might like to bring forth to the group. Come on up. Or anyone else from, yeah.
Sure. Yeah, Tammi and Tom.
All right. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves.
Well, thank you, Lynn. I got to tell you, just sitting, listening to some of the folks with their ideas, it makes you look in the rearview mirror a little bit pretty quick. So I'm here tonight with my vice chair, Tom Welch, Chair of the school committee, Theresa Spengler, and Vice Chair of our school committee, Tammi Holden. I'm in the automotive field. I really enjoyed Mr. Young's presentation. And my son goes to the NACTC in the automotive, and things he comes home and says to me, and I sell auto parts. I've done that for 30 years, and I'm in the management, been in the management part of it probably for over 25. And it just blows me away with these kids, what they learn in these programs. And so looking back, I guess one of the things I want to say is that, you know, the reason they make windshields in a vehicle bigger than a rear view mirror is because you want to learn from your past, but you got to look forward. We've got to move forward. No matter what the circumstances are. The gentleman that was just up here, I'm not sure, the gentleman from Newport that voted against you, Barbara. I'm just kidding. He made me really think about, and Cy and I have been talking for probably a month now. We meet once a week. We haven't met this week yet, but we've been meeting once a week and just exploring possibilities, what the avenues are potentially, if there are any. And I always think there are. I think things can happen. We can make things happen dependent upon, you know, if the will is there. One of the things we've been talking about though is, you know, we kind of last time we went at this thing, you know, pretty quickly, and from the top down. And one of the things we've been talking about is if we go at this again, it has to come from the bottom up. So it has to come from, and everyone gets the financial piece of it, but you know, it has to be the school committees, it has to be the teachers, it has to be the kids. You know, we can throw numbers all day long. We're not educators. You know, we're people that live in town trying to make a difference. That's what we are. So having said that, we've been talking a little bit. We've seen rides planned. We have to go on our own. We have a member of our building committee here this evening. Go moving forward, maybe parallel if something happens with that, that's great. But you know, we have needs of our own, and you know, we have to look after Middletown as well as you guys have to look after Newport. So do I hope something's there? Absolutely. We're open to anything. We're open to what's make best, what is best for the kids in their education. The finances can come later, but we need to tackle this a little bit different if we do move forward with this from the grassroots effort of the bottom up instead of the top down. So from a legislative standpoint, we are looking at trying to get those bonus points extended, because you know, it's one of the things we faced last time was the time frame. And so we're working on that. We're also working on trying to get the base reimbursement from 35% to 40% reimbursement. So the reimbursement at 35% comes to 17.5 bonus points. And at 40%, it would come with 20 bonus points. So if we had to go on it on our own, we'd be at 60. If you regionalize on top of that in some way, shape, or form, you could be at 88%. So, you know, those are the numbers. Again, I'm not an educator. I've learned a lot, and you continue to learn from everybody. But I just do want to say that we are working on things. We are communicating. But it has to come from the ground up this time if we're going to do anything. Okay. So I don't know if Tom or Theresa, you want to add anything?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for having us tonight. This is a good opportunity to hear different people's perspectives and get some more feedback and be able to pursue what options we have next. I just want to echo what Paul said. We do have our building committee. Unfortunately, our meeting was canceled last week, so we have not had the opportunity to have our formal meeting with the town council, the school committee, and our building committee. That is coming up towards the end of the month, but it wasn't in time for this meeting. So we don't have a lot more to say except that we're discussing it, and we are looking forward to what their recommendations are. What to do next? What are the next steps for Middletown? I don't think any of us, as Paul said, I'll echo that, are against any further conversations on regionalization. I think we are all open-minded and willing to talk about it. No doors are being closed at all. So that's an important thing to put out there. But again, we do have to look at what's going to happen next with our town, with Middletown, and Newport has to see what's going to happen next with Newport. So it doesn't mean that we can't have conversations and pursue potential options. But right now we're going to meet with the building committee in a few weeks and then be able to see what's going to happen next. So I think I can speak on behalf of the school committee. I don't know if Tammi wants to say anything, but you know, we'll be able to have more discussion once we know more of what's going on with the building committee and what the recommendations are. And then finance. I think the bottom up is important. I think it's important to hear from our students. And I think we need to have an educational plan. If we do pursue regionalization again, an educational plan has to be in place before it can ever go back to the voters again. I think that was a big challenge for folks. Yes, the money is absolutely important, but as parents out there, they want to know what's going to happen. Somebody brought up pre-K. Well, that's my expertise and what I do for a living. Pre-K is a very important part of education, working with early childhood. I do not agree with 3-year-olds. I agree with starting at 4. That's my personal and professional opinion. I think 3-year-olds are too small to be in a public school, but I think that there's a lot of opportunities out there to work with the districts to be able to look at early childhood programs. I also think that may not necessarily have to have new buildings for that, where we have so many programs in our community already in place that contracting out is not necessarily a bad decision for the communities to look at. So that's something that is already in existent. So why have to put in brick and mortar when there's potential to have facilities that are established, equipped, and prepared to be able to house students, the young children. But again, we have to go from bottom up. We have to work with students, parents, teachers, and the education professionals. So thank you.
Hi, Tom Welch, Middletown Council. So I think all the information we heard tonight was great. It was very, I like the perspective from Barbara and her group. I like Hank's kind of worldly view of business. I think the NAVTech is awesome. I've never had a problem with that. I'd like to see more of that. But one of the problems I'm having with this conversation is that it's a lot of, don't take this the wrong way, fluff. We're talking about all the niceties and all the things that could be, but we as a town have to do something. You guys, Rodgers, you guys had to build a building, get to the point where it wasn't going to regionalize, so you went on your own way. We're at that point now where we either have to replace our schools. We do have to replace our schools. That's what I'm on the building committee. We've gone 3 different directions trying to figure it out. And regionalization is a huge piece of that. So as far as I see it, and Newport can certainly correct me, but the only 2 possibilities that are even somewhat viable are to, you know, we keep talking about 1 high school and 1 middle school. Well, Rodgers has to be a high school. Can't get away from that. The only thing we could possibly do in that framework would be to make Rodgers the high school and Middletown the middle school. I don't know if there's any appetite out there for that. No one's really said. I don't particularly care for that one. I like the second one, where the other possibility is we have pretty much go the same way we went, but Middletown, we do have a little more room, and we could put enough room in our middle school to regionalize at the middle school level. We've talked about it educationally, and certainly there are some challenges to be met there. And I know we're not, Lynn, I'm sorry, it's not supposed to be the numbers thing here tonight, but I'm not sorry, because we have to build buildings. And in order to build buildings, we need money. In order to hire more teachers and have more educational opportunities, we need to pay for them. And right now, over the last however many years in both communities, we've seen that we are unable to fund our school committees to a level to have enough programs and enough teachers. So regionalization is a huge piece that we got to figure out. So I would love to hear from anybody else that speaks, or after that, if they have any other way of regionalizing, Because to me, we got to go there somehow, or if we don't, then unfortunately, I want to make sure that for everybody's sake, we have turned over every rock there is. Thanks.
And I think they've said mostly everything that I wanted to add, but as Tom mentioned, those two options, the first one didn't seem like there's much of an appetite for that. The second one was that middle school. And again, this was just mentioned very, very briefly. I don't know that there's much of an appetite for that. I think the numbers are quite large for a consolidated middle school. But again, it's something they can investigate, not closing any doors. But I'm also a member of the building committee, and we are moving forward as Middletown with our plan, or looking at possible plans that we need to do for our town. And our next meetings are coming up later this month, so we'll have a little bit more information then. And I thought the presentations were great. Thought you were great from Middletown High School. Thanks so much for being here and sharing all of that. I'm a huge fan of experiential learning and project-based learning. I was a teacher for 25 years. I taught in the middle school for the majority of it. So hands-on, more CTE, more of those programs. I love the idea of more mentors, adult mentors. I love the program in the back of the room. That's incredible that they've set up with the golfing. All of those things I think are wonderful, and we'll keep you updated.
So just one more thought is on my mind about, the career tech programs. One of the things is that I think we leave, and this is just my own number, I don't have any statistics to back this up. But I think we leave half the kids behind if we don't do something more to complement the programs that Newport has. If we can't regionalize, I think we have to do more of career tech programs in Middletown. I think that's nothing duplication, and maybe that's where we start. Who knows what we do? But I think a lot of the kids, I see the kids coming out now, and some of them just they don't know what they're going to do. And I think, to Hank's point, if you get them started young and early, and to Chloe's point, you made some really good points. I'm really proud of you, you Middletown Islander. That you're right. The kids need that. You're going to Brown. That's great. Not everyone's going to Brown. We need kids going to, as Mr. Young showed, some of those kids are going to come out doing really well, because try and call a plumber, as Tom says, or try and get a whole electrician. Half my family's electricians. I can't get them. It's unbelievable. So that type of stuff we need to really, really look hard at. So we appreciate your time, and I think that I think we can all learn from each other, and we continue these discussions.
Absolutely. I just want to add that we have Middletown has the career tech programs. We have our CTE programs, engineer, biomedical, and computer science. And somebody had talked about the blue program, and that is something that Middletown has been discussing as well, because obviously with living on the water, it's a very big part of our community and our environment. So it's something that's very special. And I also want to make sure I congratulate Chloe, because she started with me at 3 years old. Good job, Chloe.
Thank you very much, Middletown. It was great to hear that you have some things in the works. We know that anything here said tonight is not official in any way. Things are still possibly going to change. We just don't have the crystal ball for that. But want to be sure that Newport Now can come up. Mayor Sy, if you would come on up and join. Becky Bolan is our school committee chair. I don't know if there's anyone else here, Becky, that you wanted for you to have you join. Again, there was a Newport School Building Committee meeting tonight, and you can share or not share as you wish, Becky.
Sure.
Thank you.
I start and I will follow. Well, as Paul noted earlier, I'm probably the least qualified person in this room to be speaking on the issue of education. I'm not an education expert. I am also not an expert in stormwater. I'm not an expert in coastal vista reconstruction. I am not an expert in what else do I have listed here? Housing, right? But the reality and the difference here between education and those other issues is that the voters of Newport did elect a group of people to specifically focus on education, and that is the school committee. So as the council sees their role right now, we are focused on being able to support that Newport has the resources necessary to continue its educational mission. But we are really deferring to and looking to the school committee for that direction. About a week ago, we held a goal setting session. Not a long-term strategic planning process, just a goal setting session so that our city council could at least figure out where their priorities were, what they wanted to focus on. And I can tell you that schools did not come up as one of those priorities. It is not because we do not care about schools. It is because we heard from the voters loud and clear in this last election cycle that actions regarding our schools need to come from a grassroots level upwards. And so in our conversations that we've had so far with the school committee, with our partners, it has largely been around two very clear directives. The first is get Rodgers built, right? Our role is not to overturn the will of the voters that have been directly expressed now twice. First, the approval of the bond that, as we've discussed, is not something that we have the capability to unwind. And secondarily, not after the voters decided again that they did not want to divert away from that plan with Rodgers. So we need to get Rodgers High School built. It needs to get built to the standard that our voters expected, but we should be thoughtful in how we're building it to ensure that there are potential avenues to modify that structure in the future should we end up in a regional high school district. The second part of this is really what's the plan. We've touched on it a couple of times now, but it takes an enormous amount of bandwidth to go about tackling something like regionalizing and building school facilities on a regional level. But what we really need to be doing here is focusing not what the plan is to build building structures that conform with a timeline set forth by the state. It needs to instead be on what is the big vision for education on Aquidneck Island. Right. We need to be shooting much higher than we are right now. Set an inspirational vision that we can aspire to, and then let's back into if we have a pathway to actually get there. That is where the city council can start to have an important role. That is why I'm meeting Paul once a week at 6 a.m. to sit down and talk about this. Our role, and where councils prove to be most effective, is when they are engineering those off ramps. I realize that's probably a really bad analogy to use right now. Where they are engineering those pathways that can be used when there's community will and community support to pursue a specific path. So when it comes to building that academic vision, that is where what this council would really like to see is a clear vision from the school committee that reflects engagement with the community, a true grassroots level movement that helps us define where this community wants education to go, and then go about finding out how we go about financing that.
So first, I've got to say that I only speak for myself because as a school committee, we have not gotten together to discuss this. And so, it's just my thoughts on the subject at this point. We are going to put this on our February agenda, but as we were going through this process, and I've met with Cy too, and the superintendent, and we've talked about the fact that, first of all, we have to finish the project as, under bond restrictions. The high school has to be finished. And so, but that doesn't mean in the future, after it's built, that we can't try to do something. So we're also focused right now on two things. One is getting the high school built, finding that money we need. And the second thing is our academic improvement for our children. And so those are going to be our goals, and we are not opposed. I don't believe that talking about regionalization in the future to see what we can do, but we can't be held to a timeline. I don't think at this point, trying to get this ready for April. I think it'll be a total failure if we try to push it quickly in Newport right now, because we're going to have to get everybody, everybody has said tonight needs to come from the bottom up. It needs to be grassroots, but we are open to talks with anybody at any time. And, but I will say, I believe that that's the direction the school committee is headed in, is getting the high school finished right now.
Lynn, do you want us to take questions or? Hank, sorry.
You know, and again, it's gonna take a long time, a lot of it, yes, but the question is, what do you think we can accomplish in 3 months? Just start getting something started.
I think we have to figure out how high we want to aim as a community, right? That's really what we're trying to calibrate here. The good news right now is that the governor and the state have set a very clear vision that they want us to be by 2030 at a standard with our neighboring states. And so we at least have an initial benchmark from the state that's available. I think we need to be aggressive about identifying resources that exist from the state to help us come up with that map. And then I think we need to get to work with a high level of urgency. That is one thing that we have seen now coming out of this last election cycle. Voters do want solutions. They do want us to act with some level of urgency. So we can't muddle along on an endless study in this front. I think we need to quickly engage and go about getting such a study done. Becky, I'm not sure where you feel on this.
Well, you just echoed my personal thoughts, you know, we're just, it's got to be the bottom up, and we've, you know, and I know that we have to focus. We have a huge problem coming, you know, in Newport right now, and you all know about it. And we're going to figure out a way, you know, we've reached out to other communities, reach out to legislators to see how we can solve this issue. Yes.
I've been hearing a lot about grassroots farming.
Yes.
I've been involved since 1994 in the schools. There's never been a real swell of grassroots involvement. If you don't have a kid in the school, there really hasn't been. We've had, you know, sparks here and there. So I think we're fooling ourselves when we keep saying from the bottom up. What does that mean? Who's going to lead that? Who is it going to be building Newport's future that lied throughout both campaigns about the details, you know, and had lots of money to spend on.
It's just important we don't sling mud tonight at anybody. Yeah.
It's going to be the authoritative figure who understands education, understands the needs of industry in the future, understands our community. Who's going to lead that grassroots? It's easy to say it should come from the bottom. I was involved with CDSU when we did that bond request, voter initiative. And that was grassroots. That was during COVID, and they got 1,200 signatures of people who wanted a question put on the ballot to study regionalization. Paul, I think he probably could explain it better than me, but it got smashed because of politics and semantics. So when we talk about grassroots, it feels good to say that, oh, it's got to come from the families, it's got to come from the students. But who's going to lead that? And let's get real. And Lou, time frame wise, you're on a lot of big communities and powerful places at the state. Why are we rushing? Why did that legislation have to be rushed? Why is the language so misguided? What's the rush? And yes, it does take a long time, but we've been at this since 1994, Mike and I, spending hours of volunteer time. All I'm hearing is feel-good stuff. Grassroots, who, what, how?
Well, this is a grassroots group here tonight. It was on December the 15th. And fast forward to February the 9th, Thursday, February the 9th, we will have yet another opportunity to gather at the Knights of Columbus Hall and working on speakers, perhaps our state legislators. So I think actually what I'd like to do, Cy and Becky, if it's okay with you, unless you have another parting comment, we've opened it up for questions. And since Lou DiPalma is here and has already gotten a question, let's pass the mic over to him for a minute, or anything else?
I'll bite on one thing. I just get a quick show of hands. How many of you have a student right now in elementary school? Okay, so, right, but grandkids do count, but that's what I'm saying. If we want to talk about grassroots engagement, right, we need to figure out a way to get those parents engaged, because they're the ones whose kids will actually be going through these schools once they're regionalized. So whatever that process is to getting them engaged, even if that requires hiring an outside third party who knows how to engage with that community, we need to get that done, because otherwise this conversation that we're having, that earlier point, is it's good, it's a good start, But this is where this group needs to think about how we reach deeper into our community to pull those parents out.
But what parent doesn't want an improvement in education? They just can't express it. They're not aware. There is a groundswell. Ask any parent, do you want an improved education? They'll say yes. How do we do it? We look to the leaders
Right.
to help us out.
It has to be
And if
led.
you can't give us, you gotta present the ideas and we can react.
Right, it has to be led. If we just keep saying grassroots, it's not gonna happen. I love that site's gonna get a consultant. I think that's a great step in the right direction. But for what, almost 30 years, it's just been going around and around and around, strategic planning after strategic planning. So grassroots isn't happening. That's what I'm saying. It's not a reality, but if we make it a reality, if we have a leader who wants that to happen, then we're going in the right direction.
Okay, we have several hands raised in the audience, so Sign, Becky, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Lou, if you think that you're prepared or willing to give us a minute or two on the legislative perspective, maybe that will help answer some of our other questions. I know Theresa, Greg had questions. We'll do what we can in the time we have here at Innovate.
I will try and be as quick as possible, although try and talk as slowly as possible, which was not an easy thing for me to do. People talk about the timeline. Timeline was set by what we have in Rhode Island general law. Rhode Island general law could change, but that's what drove the process between Middletown and Newport. I'll just challenge the grassroots piece for a second, because the first bond passed in Newport, the second one passed in Middletown. So it's gone both ways. So let's put that aside for a second. I'm an engineer. My wife and I came to Rhode Island 40 years ago. I'm an engineer. I'm facts and data. We go back to facts and data. We had an election in 2020 or 2018, whenever it was, in supportive of it and supporting whatever the towns want to do, because that's what my job is, to facilitate what the towns need to do. Can language be changed? Yes. We'll find out our committee assignments tomorrow in the Senate. The House will find out sometime after they do the rules, I think like they do on the federal level. The Senate's not like the federal level. But given that, things were driven by the timetable that's in Rhode Island general law with regards to the money that's there, the bond that's there, the bonus that are there. And that's what we're trying to live towards. Somebody say, can you change it? I'll work to change anything, everything and anything, even if somebody, you can't do that. We're certainly going to try. We may fail in the end, but that's what, thank you. That's what is driving, he told me to move. So that's why I moved over here. Good man with the hands. No, but that's what drove the conversation. That's what drove the action. By the way, nice job, Chloe, from Middletown High School. As a daughter who went to Brown, as a graduate student from Brown University, you're going to do well and will represent Middletown well. Very good. But that's what drove the conversation. Just that's what the language is. The bonuses, as Paul's talked about, that's what they are. That's what was put into the legislation we did many years ago. And there's a fair amount of money that's been put towards education. And the window of opportunity is now. And it's been the window of opportunity for the last several years. And you've seen it's happening across the state. I want to get up to the East Providence High School, our new Secretary of State. He promised the guided tour. I want to get there. I've seen some of the elementary schools that have been modified up in Pawtucket. Phenomenal job. Having the right environment is important. I'm an engineer. I'm not an educator. My wife's a retired kindergarten teacher. My daughter's the STEAM director at St. George's, came back. She was there, went to Moses Brown, came back to St. George's. She's a STEAM director there. My wife's whole family of teachers. I knew my mother-in-law before I knew my wife, because I had my mother-in-law as a teacher in high school. Her whole family were all teachers. I value what you folks do to the nth degree, and thank you for all your work that you do. But from a Rhode Island general law perspective, we have to be worried about the entire state. That's part of what we need to do. What do I care about? District 12, Little Compton, Tiverton, Middletown, and Newport. And how do we help facilitate what Middletown wants to do, what Newport wants to do? I will try and help encourage you to move in a particular direction that I think I want you to move into, but that's just my opinion on things.
Thank you, Lou. I did speak with Lou and Lauren Carson prior to this evening, and both of them agreed that come our February 9th meeting, there'll probably be the best timing to relate what is happening at the legislative level. So a few more comments and questions. Yes?
We'll know what the budget looks like at a high level on Wednesday or Thursday.
Thank you, Lou. All right. Greg, Theresa, Antone, Greg?
Good evening. I think Tom Welch and Barbara VonVillas40 said it best. Thank you. The clock is ticking and Middletown has to move forward. And Barbara said it's up to Newport. And Middletown can't wait. We have to make plans to go forward. And if this doesn't happen, shame on Newport and shame on Middletown residents. We owe our kids an education. You know, my parents and my grandparents busted their tail ends and they didn't have any money and they paid taxes and made sure we had good schools. And it's a travesty if the people from this community and this island can't come together and do the right thing for our kids. You should also all go at home and look in the mirror and then go look at your kids and say, am I doing what's best for you and your education? And if you can't do that, you should be ashamed of yourselves. I've been on this island since 2011. I didn't grow up here. There's other schools across this country that are much bigger. A combined school on this island is small compared to other schools in other areas I've been to. I've lived all over this country and I've lived all over the world. It's embarrassing to say that we have the schools that we have for our kids. I don't have any kids in the schools. They're all grown up and gone. And I don't have any kids that live here. But if you don't have a good education system, your community is going to suffer. And if the adults in the room can't do it, shame on you.
Thank you, Greg. Antone, minute for you.
I've been involved in this since 2009, maybe before that. And my big problem is, number one, every time I say something and try to compare it to what they do in private industry, I'm told this isn't private industry, this is government. And then with the law, chapter 16, where it says you have a regional school district and they say each community that we need another $1.5 million, the town council has to give it to them. And if you happen to live next to the school and they want to expand and they want to they can take your property to eminent domain. And if you don't say no, don't say no, don't say no. And all I need is for the proper papers to be signed by the district secretary or chairman of the board. And they can take your property, they can even go and evict you. Read the law, chapter 11, section 11, section 11:9. I've been doing this for a long, long time.
Thank you, Antone. Does anybody else have a maybe lighter message? or not? The floor is open. Lily?
I just wanted to, my name's Lily Dick. I just wanted to thank everyone who did make their presentations today. I was particularly interested, and thank you so much, Lynn, on the focus on education, because that is what the efforts to regionalize is all about, is not only building buildings or recuperating buildings or renovating buildings, doing whatever you have to do because they have great needs, but it's what's going on in the buildings that you focused on tonight. And I do think that if we could find some way to work together, just pick something small, little steps, to regionalize, focusing on educational opportunities, it would show us all as grandparents and parents and teachers and students a way to do a better job. Sai mentioned how high do we want to shoot? Well, we should shoot as high as we possibly can go. And I think that it would be a shame if we get stuck in a rut. I think that we should focus on education and try our best to find a little path and make that a big path forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily. I'll pass back to Hank.
Just Hank Kniskern, just a quick one. I wondered if we could just a quick thought. I mean, all the points, even some of the heartfelt ones here too, are important. And I'm just wondering if we could use the February meeting to start populating some of the issues that are really critical to talk. So we're starting to talk about the issues instead of around the issues, and then bring in perhaps somebody from, I think Massachusetts has a regional association of middle schools, and maybe somebody to give us a little insight, or Van Buren, are they willing to be, some just, and also get some data points or some of the best schools, but at an inspired level, not just a 3 yards in a cloud of dust level, and just use the 28th as a launching pad.
Okay, well, I've got a challenge there to meet, don't I? Even tonight took a lot of phone calls and a lot of emails and texts. But we do have a month then to work on it. So I'm up for the challenge. If all of you are up for the challenge to come back again, talk, share ideas, get some of those parents that you say we have grandparents, why don't you offer to watch the kids on February the 9th and send your parents of the kids here. Theresa, you had something else you wanted to share? Sure.
A comment about the suggestion of grassroots. First, I want to mention something about Massachusetts. It's very difficult to compare Rhode Island and Massachusetts because Massachusetts is a pay to play, is a very different. So when they're given a budget to their community, the municipalities, they're required to pay. They also have pay to play in their schools. Their buses are paid for by parents. So it is a very, very different system. I'm sorry. I understand that, but we don't have that in our state. So we don't have, we should, because Massachusetts is a right to an education. Rhode Island does not have it as a right to education. So we bring in somebody from Massachusetts. It is very difficult to compare apples to grapes. And so, I mean, it's still all fruit, but it just, because they have a very different system. And yes, absolutely. But that starts at the legislative level of pay to play with the difference in the funding. In regards to suggestions for grassroots of how that would work, my recommendation would be that it starts at the top. We then we have our leadership team that would be including the school departments and the municipalities. We then would include a handful of each of union leadership from each district. This would be my suggestion. And then we bring in and we actually interview parents, and we have a specific team from each district if the regionalization comes up again. So it would have to be a very specific group. You'd start out with large groups like this. You'd have workshops. That is the way it would work. Then you narrow it down to a handful of people. You cannot make these massive decisions with 200 people in a room. It just doesn't work that way. It would have to start as a large group, and it would be tapered down to get to a body, a committee that would be honed in and focusing on what the communities would want. So that is what, you were asking about who. It would start with the leadership team and work it down. Right. Right. But I understand what you're saying. I just wanted to mention that. That would be how I would picture the evolution process.
Thank you. Thank you, Theresa. Well, I have a challenge, I guess, and maybe Theresa is almost volunteering a challenge for her school district. Again, all of this takes time, and next month I'll do my best to try to bring forth another forum to address things. We do have a short survey. If you haven't filled it out already, there is a place there for you to provide feedback. Hank is heading for it right now because I know Hank has some more ideas. But Kevin here from Innovate Newport, we said that we would only meet till 8:30. We don't have a lot of big ideas that got put up on our idea board there. So give that some thought before you leave at 8:30. Thank you again to all the presenters, everyone who made the time tonight. Thank you.